It is clear that the decline of a language must ultimately have political and economic causes, is a quote from the George Orwell essay, Politics and the English Language from 1946. The essay further elaborates on the abuse of political words where there are words that lack a true definition. In some instances, the definitions of the said word has devolved, erasing its origin, or the word is used in a consciously dishonest way where the person uses the word which has a private definition to them, but to the observer or consumer is allowed to think of it in a different way. The insincerity of the writer perpetuates the decline of English language as people attempt to disguise their intentions behind euphemisms and convoluted phrasing. If thought can corrupt language, then language can corrupt thought. The same points are observed in the internet space where a topic of internet discourse is a buzzword or a political word and the issues surrounding the said topic, summed into two different discourse situations where one, the particular discourse is either over what does a particular word or topic currently means because the word became devolved, or two, the use of a word is either an offensive or defensive tactic as an example of the insincerity of the user where a word can become corrupted. An example of a word being devolved is in this TikTok here.
People have been telling me homeless is not the word anymore, it's unhoused, which sure.
So I thought that joke was pretty funny, and I'm homeless and I know a lot of homeless people, and like none of us know what the fuck it means. Like I'll literally bring it up sometimes. I'll be talking to someone and I'll be like, oh yeah, you hear people are saying unhoused now, and they'll be like, what? What is that? I don't think it's very intuitive, and I personally haven't lived in a house in over 20 years, so it kind of makes less sense than homeless, in my opinion. Also, sometimes new words are created to keep us from finding each other. So imagine it's like 3 to 5 years from now and the word has trickled itself into the nonprofit sector and half the resources say homeless and the other half say unhoused. And so somebody like me who maybe doesn't know what unhoused means, I'm looking up resources, which are already very difficult to find anyway. And I only have access to half of the resources because the only word I know is homeless. And I don't know, maybe a homeless person came up with it, but it kind of reminds me of that old white guy who was too scared to say Ebonics, so he came up with the phrase African American Vernacular English.
This person talks about homeless and unhoused, where unhoused is a more modern term used to humanize and destigmatize those without stable housing. That with language evolving, the particular group of people that we may refer to as unhoused, members of the group might remain unknowing of the adjustments to the language, thus could be negatively affected, even if it's unintentional. Two examples as to how terms can become corrupted. As previously discussed in the topic of media literacy, where media literacy is a term used as an attempt of a defensive insult to an opposing person's view of a media event. Media literacy, the term, is used as an attempt of a defensive insult to an opposing person's view of a media event. Which, how can insulting someone's supposed lack of media literacy when they are in an act of media literacy be someone lacking media literacy? Thus can result in the observers outside of the situation not knowing what media literacy actually is. Totally confusing, right? Another instance is the term misogyny is an observed offensive and defensive tactic used when disagreeing with a person and used when a person of power uses it as a defense from facing criticism or critique, resulting in the term misogyny becoming devolved. Aren't we all, even if it's unintentional, misogynists in a patriarchal society? And the term definitions I'm referring to is patriarchy, a social system which privilege and dominance is held by men, and misogyny, the hatred of women. Because hate has a truly wide spectrum, being that misogyny, the term is used as an offensive and defensive tool, it's becoming corrupted to serve various agendas, either personal, business, etc., thus causing people to not knowing what misogyny is or what it can look like and how it could affect other people. When someone challenges an oppressive system, they're often faced with more oppression by people who want to, feel the need to, or have to uphold the system. There's many benefits as to why one may want to uphold an oppressive system, but in the case of misogyny, if, for example, a woman challenges a misogynistic system, she will often face more misogyny. Whereas in circles, particularly in left or liberal-leaning circles, if someone says something that another doesn't like, the term misogyny has been used to silence a person stating a viewpoint. And due to the abuse of the political word, it's either the claim of misogyny is true or the action is a way of societal grooming to push people to keep them in line by not questioning the issues within a system. Another common defense use of misogyny is following the commodification of a social identity where a person uses a particular item of their own identity to leverage them forward, eventually becoming a stable figure in an oppressive system. This, for example, the specialist versus herd grouping from Chomsky's media control. In order to defend themselves from any sort of criticism or critique, whether it's valid or not, political words are used as a shield, resulting in the devaluation of the word even if it's unintentional. Also, isn't it misogynistic to contribute to the devaluation of the term misogyny to uphold a misogynistic system? A perfect example of how supposed misogyny claims could actually be a paradox of what is and isn't acceptable to be discussed because of the lack of social norm and the abuse of political words in a consciously dishonest way. With misogyny being what Benny would consider a very real or serious problem, those in the specialized class unwilling to help dismantle or at least truly educate others must be intentional, as they're probably benefiting from at least some form of misogyny themselves.